Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're diving into a really powerful idea, the belief that our worldview isn't just for us personally. It's meant to go out and shape everything, the very fabric of our society. So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll talk about a world made poorer. Then we'll get into something called the Great Spiritual Divide. After that, we'll look at the Monday Church mission, what that's all about. Then, how ideas can actually change the world, the big question of education, and finally, a plan for rebuilding society from scratch. All right, let's kick things off. We're going to start with a personal story that really sets the stage for everything we're talking about today. Imagine being asked that. This question was put to a really talented artist, and it came after she made a huge decision. A decision that, from this point of view, literally made the world a poorer, less beautiful place. So here's the deal. This woman was an incredible painter, just brilliant. But then, one day, she completely stopped, just put down her brushes. And when someone asked her why, she said that because of her faith, her art just didn't feel, spiritual enough. She wanted to pour her life into things that had real eternal value. And for her, painting wasn't one of them. And get this, that was over 30 years ago. She hasn't painted since. And that story, it just hits you, right? It gets right to the heart of what we're talking about. I mean, how many other people are out there doing the same thing, silencing their gifts, their talents, because they think it's somehow separate from their spiritual life? This is the exact problem that the worldview we're unpacking today is trying to solve. Okay, so if we're going to get the solution, we've got to understand the problem first. And according to the source material, the root of it all is this massive spiritual divide that's been baked into our thinking for a long, long time. The idea here is that a lot of our thinking comes from an ancient Greek worldview that basically splits everything in two. You've got the spiritual stuff over here and the physical stuff over there. And this worldview says the spiritual things, prayer, worship, that kind of thing, are what really, truly matter. Everything else, the physical world, your job, art, business, well, that's all seen as less important, maybe even a distraction from what's really spiritual. But here's the counter-argument, coming from a biblical worldview, and it's a total flip. This perspective says, hold on a second, there's no spiritual versus physical hierarchy. Think about it. The story starts with God creating both the heavens and the earth. Jesus didn't show up as a ghost. He came in a real physical body, and it was his body that was resurrected. So the conclusion here is pretty clear. Both realms matter. The physical world isn't some lesser thing we need to get away from. It's part of the whole package. And that's the key, this split, this dualism. That's exactly why that artist stopped painting. And it's why a whole lot of people, engineers, teachers, parents, you name it, can feel like their everyday work, their Monday to Friday grind, is somehow second class compared to what they do on a Sunday morning. All right, so we've laid out the problem, this big divide. Now for the solution. And it starts with a pretty radical idea, completely rethinking what the church is even for. So the first big shift is in the definition itself. The church isn't a place you go to. It's a people who are sent out. The original Greek word they used, ecclesia, didn't mean a holy building. It meant a group of citizens who were called out of their homes to go do something in the city, to be ambassadors. And that's the idea here. A community of people sent out into the world to represent a different way of living. I love this visual. It's like there are two phases. You have the Sunday church, where everyone gathers. The arrows are all pointing in. That's for worship, learning, getting equipped. But that's just phase one. Then comes the Monday church. That same group of people scatters. The arrows all point out into every part of society. The whole point of Sunday is to get you ready for Monday. And the mission for this Monday church is, well, it's huge. It's not just about getting individuals saved. The goal is to, and I'm quoting here, disciple nations. What does that mean? It means taking these core beliefs and living them out so powerfully in your field, whether you're in business, art, education, government, whatever, that you actually start to shift the culture of that entire sphere. Okay, but let's be real. How does that actually work? I mean, it sounds great, but how do a few people's ideas really end up changing a whole culture? Well, the source material lays out a specific roadmap for how this happens. So the thinking goes like this. Culture gets shaped from the top down. It all starts with the intellectuals, the philosophers, the big thinkers who come up with these new ideas. But then the artists, the musicians, the filmmakers, the writers, they're like the antenna of society. They pick up on these ideas first and weave them into our culture. Next, the professionals, lawyers, politicians, business leaders, they turn those cultural vibes into actual laws and products. And by the time it gets to the rest of us, we're just living in the world that those ideas built, usually without even realizing it. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? Let me make the songs of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws. It's this idea that culture comes before politics. If you can shape what people love, what they sing about, what they believe in their hearts, the laws will eventually catch up. And to make this super practical, the source points to someone like Madonna. The argument isn't that she's just an entertainer. It's that she's actively shaping the culture, discipling a nation with her worldview. A really specific example given is that famous kiss with Britney Spears on live TV. In that one moment, a message was sent to millions of people around the world. This is normal. This is good. And the point is that today, artists and social media are often way more powerful at shaping a young person's values than even their own parents or church. So if artists and ideas are that powerful, it leads you to the next logical question. What's the biggest battleground for ideas? Well, according to this perspective, it's education. It's what we teach our kids. And this brings up a huge dilemma for a lot of religious families, right? Should we send our kids to public school to be a light in the world? You want them to be a positive influence, but you're also worried about the ideas they're soaking in every day. Well, the source material does not shy away from this question. The argument being made here is that public schools aren't neutral territory. Far from it. The claim is that they are actively teaching a very specific worldview, a secular one where there's no God, where humans are basically just animals seeking pleasure, and where there's no such thing as right and wrong, it's all just relative. So, from that perspective, the idea of sending your kid into that system to be a light is like asking a little candle to light up a hurricane. And there's a personal story that's used to drive this home. The speaker had a meeting with his kid's dean about some issues, and the dean literally said to him, "You're old-fashioned. Just let them act however they want." And for the speaker, that was the light bulb moment. He realized the school wasn't just not helping him, it was actively pushing a value system that was the complete opposite of his family's. Okay, so what do you do? I mean, what happens when your kid says, "No way, all my friends are at my school. I don't want to go to some boring church school all week"? It's a real question, and the source anticipates it. And the answer isn't what you might think. It's not about forcing them into some stuffy, boring private school. The vision here is to create alternatives that are so good, so exciting, that kids actually want to be there. One great example is homeschooling co-ops. You get a bunch of families together and you play to your strengths. The mom who's a poet teaches literature to all the kids. The dad who's an engineer teaches math. You build this amazing, dynamic community. And what it really does is put the responsibility for education back where this worldview says it belongs, with the parents, not the government. All right, so let's pull all these threads together. We've talked about integrating our beliefs, the Monday church, shaping culture. How does it all add up to a real plan for changing society? It's laid out as a 3-level model, like a pyramid, and you have to build it from the bottom up. The foundation, level 1, is personal change. It starts with individuals embracing this integrated worldview for themselves. Level 2 is reforming the culture. That's when those people take their beliefs into their jobs, into art, business, law, and start changing things from the inside. And only then, once the culture starts to shift, can you get to level 3, rebuilding institutions, changing laws and government. You can't start at the top. And if you're wondering what that middle level, reforming culture actually looks like, there's this great story about a city planning student. She gets this idea that God must actually care about how cities are designed. So for 4 years, she reads the Bible from cover to cover, but she does it through the lens of a city planner, taking notes on every single principle that could apply to building a city where people could really thrive. That's it. That's reforming culture from within your field. And you can apply this to literally any field. For instance, the source mentions a doctor who did something similar with medicine. He studied the health and nutrition principles in the Bible and came to this pretty shocking conclusion. He believes that up to 80% of our modern health problems could be wiped out if we just followed those ancient guidelines. Look, when you talk about changing the whole world, it's easy to feel like, what can I even do? Totally insignificant. And the speaker contrasts 2 ways of thinking about this. One view, described as coming from a Hindu concept, is that you're just a single drop of water in a giant ocean. You just merge and disappear. But the biblical idea is totally different. It says, you're not a drop in the ocean. You're a stone in a lake. You might be just one stone, but when you're thrown in, you create ripples. Ripples that spread out and have an impact way beyond what you can even see. And that brings us right back to where we started. Remember that artist who stopped painting because she thought it wasn't spiritual? Well, we've explored this whole idea that everything we do matters, that a song can disciple a nation. So the final question isn't about them, it's about us. If your life is a stone being thrown into the lake, what kind of ripples are you making? What's the story that your life is telling?